إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we are now in the later portion of the month of Safar. We're in the 23rd going into the 24th today. And we are now going through Surah Yasin, the 36th Surah. We are in the 22nd Juz, but starting with ayat 28 of Surah Yasin, we're going to be in the 23rd Juz, and that will also begin the 45th Hizb. So we're going to be moving forward from there. Now, Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi, in his text, ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir, he starts by saying, quote, "The Exalted One discusses the case of the believers from the land of Antioch when he says, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا أَصْحَابَ الْقَرْيَةِ إِذْ جَاءَهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. And bring forth for them the example of the people of the city when there came to them the messengers. When we sent to them the two people, and they denied the two, so we strengthened the two with a third. And they said, we come to you as messengers. The people, they said, you are not except for men like us. The most merciful did not send down anything. You only lie. They said, Lord, our Lord, He knows that we've been sent to you. Our only responsibility is conveying the clear news. They said, we have had enough of you and the ill luck that you have brought. If you do not desist, we will certainly stone you to death, and you will feel a stern punishment coming from us. They said, the ill luck that you claim is only as a result of yourselves. If only you would remember the truth. But you are a people that transgress. Then there came from the other extremity of the city a man who came forward quickly, and he said, O my people, follow the messengers. Follow the one who does not ask for any reward, and they are guided. What is wrong with me that I do not worship the one who fashioned me from the beginning, and to him shall you all return? Is it then that gods are taken from besides him, when in reality there is no way that any harm can be brought besides the most merciful? And no gods can benefit any intercession at all, nor can they offer salvation. It's the case that you are in clear error. I myself have believed in your Lord, so hear the truth. It will be said, enter the paradise. He said, oh, I wish that my people knew the truth of this, of the forgiveness that my Lord gave me, and that he made me from among the honored ones. Surah Yasin, the 36th surah, ayat 13 to 27. When the Exalted One says, and set forth for them the example, meaning set forth for the people of Mecca this example that is like them. As Zajjaj has said, they were given the example of Ashab al-Qarya, the people of the city or the civilization. Now it was said by Ikrimah and Qatada ibn Da'imah that this city is Antioch. And when the Exalted One said, we sent to them the two people. Now these two people have been referred to by the titles Sadiq and Masduq, or Sadiq and Suduq, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Ka'ab ibn al-Ahbar. The second statement is that these two people, those are their titles, their laqab that they were given, but their names are Yuhanna and Bulis. This was said by Wahab ibn Munabbih, while Muqatil said that their given names are Tuman and Bulis. And we strengthened them, فَعَزَّزْنَا, with a third when their people denied them. Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Ibn Amr, Hamza al-Kasai, and Hafs and Asim recited as فَعَزَّزْنَا, while the others have a different recital. Ibn Qutaybah said it means we strengthened them, gave them power, gave them the ability. Now Abu Bakr and Al-Mufaddal ibn Asim recited as فَعَزَزْنَا. And this also conveys the same meaning, but more the sense of, and we gave them dominance. Muqatil says the name of this third person was Sham'un, and he was one of the disciples of Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam that had been advised to go forward. Wahab ibn Munabbih said, Allah revealed to Sham'un what the two that were sent before him were doing. And he was commanded to help the two other people that had gone into the city. So he set out looking for them. While Al-Farra had said in one narration that he came beforehand, before these two, and then came back again. So he was strengthened, the two were strengthened with him before because they knew he would be coming. Scholars of commentary say that this man, Sham'un, he was only sent to help the two of them. Now, the two went through trials and tribulation, but they received the help. And Al-Farra's statement that he came first and then the two came is not the position that we enjoy and hold on to. The scholars of commentary say, and they differ regarding who was sent, or who sent these original three message givers to the people. The first statement is that Allah the Exalted sent them. So these three people wound up going forward because Allah the Exalted sent them. And this was said by Ibn Abbas, Ka'ab ibn al-Ahbar, and Wahab ibn Munabbih. The second is that Nabiyuna Isa alayhi salam sent them. Now it's possible this is the case because the messengers of a messenger could have been sent. And Qatada bin Da'imah ibn Jurayj have confirmed as such. Now the people said, you are not but men like us, meaning you don't have any rank over us. And the Most Merciful sent down nothing, meaning no book has been sent down ever, nor has a messenger been sent. But you cause us ill luck. This was referring to the fact that rain was being withheld from them. And they said, before you came here, everything was better. If you do not desist, meaning if you do not silence yourselves regarding calling us to your religion, we will most certainly stone you, meaning to do so until we kill you. Then when the messengers respond by saying, your attributing ill luck to us is only you. Meaning that the ill luck that you attribute to us is on account of your rejecting faith. It's nothing to do with us. If only you would remember. Now Ibn Kathir recites it as Ayin Dhukirtum, as well as Abu Amr. Al-Akhfash, he says it means if only you remembered and took heed, had fear of Allah, you would have been protected and saved. Then Allah the Exalted says, there came a man walking quickly from the other side of the city. Now the name of this man is Habib al-Najjar. Habib the carpenter. He had already believed in what the messengers came with when they came to the city. His house was on the extremity of the city at one of the gates. Now when news reached him that his people had denied the messengers and were seeking to kill them, he came quickly and he said what Allah had been given us when he said, O my people. This being the words of the man, O my people, follow the messengers. Follow the one who does not ask for any wage. And these people are guided. These are the words of the man that came that had believed in the messengers. So believe in those who are guided, meaning the messengers. And they took him and they brought him to the king. And the king said to him, do you follow these messengers? He said, what's wrong with me? That I would not follow and worship Allah who originated me? So this means, is there anything for me is there any protection that if I do not worship Allah, that I'll somehow be protected? And to him you'll all be returned at the time of resurrection. And he will reward you for your kufr. Don't you know this? Now, the question is, that someone might ask is, why did the man attribute his being originated to himself and resurrection to them, when he knows that Allah has originated all of them and he will resurrect all of them? Why has he not said, the one who shall resurrect us all, and only said he will resurrect you all? The answer is that Allah the Exalted has brought about his favors, and his favors necessitate gratefulness. Resurrection in the hereafter is a threat that keeps one on the straight path when one thinks about the penalties. And by attributing favor to oneself, this shows that someone really is thankful to Allah. And by attributing resurrection to the unbeliever, it shows that this is what's coming, because the unbelievers are necessarily denying resurrection on account of their worship of the idols. Do you take besides him other gods in which their intercession is of no avail? Nor can they save anyone? So meaning, no one can give any salvation but Allah. In that condition, no one can help. I have believed, indeed, I have believed in the Lord, in your Lord. Now this means that he's speaking to his people, because he's saying the Lord of the messengers and the Lord of the people. So his Lord is just as much as their Lord, but he's drawing emphasis. So listen to him, meaning testify of the truth of what he's saying. So listen to me and listen to the messengers. This is what has been given. When he spoke to his people, they had stomped their feet in abject anger. As Sudayy said, they pelted him with stones. And he said, O Allah, guide my people. But it will be said to such a one on the day of resurrection, enter the paradise. So when the people were finally able to come to this man, Habib al-Najjar, and kill him, it was said to him at the time of his death, you will enter the paradise. And when he entered it, he said, oh, if only my people knew the sins that I had been forgiven of and what was awaiting. And that this is what's waiting for all. Let them know, so that they might believe, that they might take heed in life and in death. When they killed them, Allah hastened to them the punishment. And because of that he said, and what we sent down on his people, meaning the people of Habib, from after him, after his being killed, armies from the sky. So the Exalted One says about this, when he has given us, وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ مِن بَعْدِهِ مِن جُندٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَا كُنَّا مُنزِلِينَ إِن كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ خَامِدُونَ يَا حَسْرَةً عَلَى الْعِبَادِ ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. And what we sent down on his people from after his time of an army from the sky. And that which came from us was the truth, and it came down. What comes to them will be nothing but one shout, one blast, and they will be humiliated. Oh, the tribulation that comes upon the slaves. No messenger came to them except that they mocked him. Do they not see how many we destroyed before them of the generations, and that they shall not be returning again? Indeed, each one of them shall come unto our sight, gathered on that day. It is a sign to them, and enough of a sign, that you have the dead land, that we revive it, and we bring out of it seeds and vegetation, and from it they eat. We made in it gardens, and these gardens are of date palms, grapes, and we brought forward springs that bring out water. They eat from the fruit and vegetation, and what their hands have worked the land. Won't they be thankful? Glorified is the one who created the pears, all of them, from that which grew from the earth, and from themselves, and from that which they do not know. A sign for them is the night that outstrips and comes from it the day. And when they are enveloped in darkness, this is what occurs. The sun moves to an established point for it. That is the design of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. And the moon, we have designed it and given it specific houses, so that when it returns after it has gone through those houses, it looks like an old stalk of corn. The sun, it's not for it that it should overstrip and overtake the moon, nor the night overtake the day. All of them are in a clear orbit and plan. Surah Yasin, the 36th Surah, ayat 28 to 40. The Exalted One, when he says, after they had killed Habib al-Najjar, the carpenter, Allah had said, it will be said to him, enter the paradise. And he will say, oh, if only they could know of the forgiveness that I have experienced. So, the resurrection is known to be true. And we did not send on the people of Habib from after him, meaning after his murder, any army, meaning the angels. There was no one that could help except who Allah helps. And so Allah says, we destroyed them that came before. No message was given to them that rejected the faith because they were destroyed after the truth came to them. It shall only be as one blast. The scholars of commentary say, the angel Jibreel alayhi salam took a hold of the gate of the city, and it was destroyed with one blast. They died, and nothing good was heard from them. It was like the fire when it's put out. An exalted one says, and nothing remains but the burnt embers, like the dust. Oh, the tribulation of the slaves, meaning the calamity towards the slaves. What's come to them? To the point that nothing remains of that which they used to have. So when people are made homeless or tossed out, they have nothing but what remains. They have the punishment that they have brought forward. And that punishment has come to themselves, as said by Mujahid, while as Zajjaj has said, because of their mockery of the messengers, in the hereafter they suffer a terrible setback. Abu Ali has said, they shall certainly see the punishment. The messengers have brought the truth. And the angels come to the slaves and also say, Ya hasratan al-ibad. What a calamity for the slaves, because of their denial of the messengers. So here Allah is threatening the unbelievers to say, have you not seen, meaning do they not know, how many nations we have destroyed beforehand? So it's an idea to make them understand, to reflect, and to also have fear. Because destruction only comes to them after they've denied the truth. Further to this, the destruction comes to them and catches them unaware. And when they're brought forward, they shall all be present. All the nations shall be gathered on the day of resurrection. They shall be rewarded for their deeds. So, every means all. And all shall be gathered. Now, a sign for these people is the dead land that has given life, that moves forward. Allah will resurrect the dead to be living again, just the same as He resurrected a dead land to be living. And from the vegetation, they eat from the seeds. They eat from the plants. They eat from the fruits. And we made therein to gush forth springs from the earth, so that they might eat from its vegetation. Meaning from the date palms and what their hands have put forward in working the land. Amilethu. Or in one eye, amiletka. This has been recited by Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Abu Amr, Ibn Amir, Hafs and Asim. Whereas Hamza al-Kasai, Abu Bakr ibn Asim say, Amilat, without the ha. Now this way, Amilathu, this is established and we know it from Mecca, Al-Madinah, Sham, Al-Basra. But the people of Al-Kufa have a narration of Amilat. And this indicates that the people in the ayah are consuming from the fruit and vegetables and that which they want to work with their hands. It is possible that the earthly life, whatever they don't work with their hands, is because the soil might have already been tilled. So they're taking what's left over. They might not have to work the soil, but they're certainly benefiting from it. They consume from it what their hands have brought forward, what they've planted, and what regular things they have done. That's all there for them. Do they not thank Allah? Then they do not thank Him. But Allah has glorified Himself, and He said, glorified is the one who created all pairs, meaning all the genus of all things. Close quote. Now, the word ajnas used here is the plural of the word jins, which is singular. It is the origin of where the English word genus comes from. So we say that Allah has created the jins, or the ajnas of everything. He's created the genus of everything, which means its type, its form. So you have the dog is Canidae, right? That's its genus, and then you have all the subdivisions: the German Shepherd, the Collie, the Labrador, all these other breakdowns, right? The genus we have regarding human beings, and you start having breakdowns into, well, these are Asians. Then you start breaking down the South Asians, Southeast Asians, Middle Asian, Upper Asian, Northwestern Asian. You have all these breakdowns, right? And then you keep sub-splintering until you start to break down into families and different codes. So the word jins is coming into English as genus. The Imam, rahimahullah, he then says, and from that which grew as vegetation from the earth, of fruits and seeds and other than that, and from themselves, because they are males and females, human beings. And from that which they do not know, meaning beasts of the air, beasts of the sea, and other things, which we have no knowledge about them. But Allah has created all of them in pairs. A sign for them is the night that strips out over the day, and the sign for them is the proof on Allah's oneness and His power, the fact that the night comes forward and outstrips the day. Al-Farra has said, the day is thrown onto us. Abu Ubaidah has said, we're brought out of the night, brought into the day. Brought out of the day and brought into the night. Al-Mawardi has said, that is because the day enters in with wind and illumination, and we leave from the coldness of the night. And they are entering into the shadows. The sun, which again Allah has shown as a sign for them, was Shamsu, as a sign for them that moves according to an established pattern and goes to a resting place. Now this has been mentioned that the resting place of the sun, there is a hadith narrated from Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, in which he says, I asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said the resting place, what does this mean, the mustaqar? He said the resting place is under the throne. And he went on to say, the sun moves and goes until it prostrates in front of its Lord, and it seeks permission to rise every day. And the permission is granted. This is collected by Imams Al-Bukhari, Muslim, and also At-Tirmidhi. Also, its resting place means also when its western direction, when it sets, it does not transgress from the west. It stays in a westerly direction at setting. It doesn't decrease from that. It's said by Mujahid. Also, it has a certain time that it sets and a certain time that it rises. It's said by Qatada. Muqatil has said it has a time for it all the way up until the day of resurrection. Another thing is that it goes through the different solar houses until it reaches the resting place where it does not transgress beyond those solar houses. Then it returns to the first solar house. This was said by Ibn Sa'ib. Ibn Qutaybah has said the resting place also means it goes to its highest levels of solar houses when setting and doesn't go beyond those, and goes to the highest levels when it sets and when it rises, and the whole process starts again. So the meaning of this is that it doesn't transgress, it stays within that system. It's not established in one place. Close quote. Now, this is significant for a number of reasons. One is we have a very different way of understanding what we call cosmology. Cosmology is not just the origins of the creation, but the origins of how the creation functions. If by understanding manazil, because a manzil means place, manazil means lunar houses or lunar places, and that refers to both the sun and the moon. Now you'll often see drawings. If you study mandalas or you study history, there'll be an autumn equinox, a summer equinox, a winter solstice, an autumn solstice. And when you draw a circle, you can put a line going down the middle of it and a line going across. And you can break down the 4 seasons into this structure. Now, when you break down the 4 seasons into that structure, then on each of those 4, you have another set where you have 3 structures that happen in the season: planting season, reaping season, 3 in the winter, 3 in the spring, 3 in the summer, 3 in the fall. And these function according to the constellations. By the movement and appearance of certain constellations, people organized their planting seasons, their crop seasons, and everything else. Now, this is an example of, although this is used in Egypt, and it has قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, you'll see it has 4 marks on it. These 4 marks represent the seasons. Now, these 4 areas, you have the 2 sides, and then you have a top and a bottom. So the top, north, east, south, west. Those are 4 directions. Then you have the spring, summer, fall, winter. And when it's hung up and the sun hits it in a certain direction, based upon the seasons and where it is, as well as the wind, it gives you an idea of the season. These change color, and it gives you an idea of how the seasons function. Now, this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. Salafiyah comes to power, says, oh, this is shirk, it's got to go. They destroy it. They destroy the areas. They ruin people's ability to track things. Now, this goes back to the use of the word buruj. Buruj in Arabic means constellations. This word buruj is mentioned in Juz Amma in the 85th surah. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. It's the 85th surah, first ayah. This word appears again in Surah Yunus, ayah 5, the 10th surah, ayah 5. And these constellations, it's been mentioned that, now the scholars differ as to the sense that Allah is discussing constellations in Surah Al-Buruj and Surah Yunus, because Allah says that He put them there. Now, when he says that he put them there, the scholars differ because they say, is it the case that Allah put the constellations there in the shape that they're in for us to follow them? Or did he put the constellations there and let us find the pattern and then make the outlines of them, and then we could figure it out and use it as a mainstay? Because no matter what civilization you go into, they break down the sun's cycle as it moves across the sky into 12 lunar houses. The sun goes through 12 lunar houses and it goes through 4 seasons. Now, in the spring and summer, it goes through a deviational period where it rises in the east, but it deviates southeast. Now, in the autumn and winter, it sets in the west, but it deviates a little bit southwest. It deviates slightly. And there comes a point where when the sun rises, which on the solar calendar is late December, but our calendar is sometime in Ramadan usually, it will hang in the sky an extra period of time. And that extra period of time that it hangs in the sky will cause a longer day. Then also it will drop down at a certain point in the year. It drops down, and then what happens is we have a longer night. And that's where you get your vernal equinox, right? Your winter solstice. Winter solstice and vernal equinox, there are people who celebrate it for pagan reasons. Let's ignore that for a second. The reason why all cultures know about a vernal equinox, the equinoxes, where they know about the summer, the vernal, they know about winter solstice, is because of issues to do with planting, reaping, and sowing of crops. That's the whole reason why these, which is not only a protection against the evil eye, but it's also to help you know about when planting season and when harvesting is. These change color precisely so that you know. That's what it's there for. So when people understand how that works, people realize, looking around, seeing these signs of Allah around them, that the sun goes through these 12 these 12 solar houses. Those 12 solar houses were then given names by the constellations that the sun reflected off of in certain parts of seasons. Now, those 12 names later became to be called the 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, though those original 12 signs were used for crops and the different constellations that appeared. Orion's belt, the sign of the Hamel, the bear. The Hamel is Sagittarius, right? The Adra, the Virgin, Virgo, right? The Aqrab is the Scorpio. There was no issue in the beginning because these signs and constellations were facts. It could be shown where they came from. It could be shown at the time that they appeared at certain seasons of the year and were more prominent than other constellations. And that told you when it was time to rotate crops, when it was time to take them out, when it was time to plant, when it was time to cease doing that. And these are things that happen today. And all throughout the world, they find these massive, they look like sundials, but they're not sundials, they're called mandalas. And a mandala is a seasonal disc in which the light from the sun reflects at certain times of the year and gives you a measure of where you are during your crop season. When you plant rice, you need to know where you are. Potatoes, corn, leeks. That's what all that's there for. Now, quackery came into it when people started to think, well, wow, there's this structure that's in place regarding crops and what the sun does. That therefore means that these 12 signs must also have an impact on humans as well. And the moment they did that, that's when astrology came in, where they started saying this person was born when the sun was in its solar house of Sagittarius. And because this person is Sagittarius, the season that they were born in is a season of reaping, a season of great difficulty. So that means that person is going to be very difficult. They're going to have these traits. This person was born during when the sun was in the solar house of Taurus. So they're going to be really bullheaded because that's your planting season. You're watering your crops. That person's very ignorant. He's difficult to get along with. This person was in the year of Scorpio, where you're actually rotating your crops. So that's a time of harvesting and great plenty. And that means the Aquarius is a very good lover and all these other things. Those things are pure quackery. That's got nothing to do with the original reason why the 12 signs of the zodiac were brought about, and why you'll see sometimes over houses in Egypt and places, there's a big circle and a line going down and then a line going across. It looks like a cross. And then there's 4 big blocks, and they light up when the sun hits them at certain times of the year. And there's these other structures that are within them. Those are the signs of the zodiac that are there for a purpose. Now this then brings us to our next point. We now have to go back to discussing cosmology again. This goes back to our understanding that because the sun is going through these solar processions, that also means that the sun also precesses outside of Earth, which means it has its own moving that it's doing, which means we have a different understanding of orbit. Western civilization, when they talk about the solar system and the planets, they say the planets, they're orbiting around the sun. And the model that they have of the sun is usually on a stationary model, and the planets are moving around it. That is not how we have understood historically, the Muslim scientists have understood about how things work. We understand that the planets are being pulled on by the sun. And they're also going around the sun in an ellipse. It's not a perfect orbit, it's an ellipse. The sun is also moving in an ellipse because something's pulling on the sun. What's pulling on the sun? The solar system and other stars. And our galaxy is also out of precession because it's being pulled on. So a precession happens possibly every 2,690 years. There's a precess that happens with the sun where it gets pulled on. And our galaxy starts orbiting around the base or center of the universe, this universe that we're in, because these universes are pulling on each other. This is called the understanding of the adim, the vortex. We do not live in a universe that is a vacuum. Western civilization, Western science says, no, space is a vacuum. That's why there's no oxygen out there. No. Space is not a vacuum. Space is a vortex. The reason why it's not that there's no oxygen in space, it's pulled so thin that we can't access the oxygen and make use of it. It's not that it's not there. Because if space was a vacuum, that would mean that there's no force, but there's gravity all over the place. Because look at the condition that the galaxies are in. Look at how the blue giants look, the red giants. Look at what's happening. The sun is being pulled on by another force. Why? Because it's not just sending off solar flares. The sun is having pieces of its corona pulled off every year. And then every year, the Earth is putting off radiation. 2 types of radiation, because it's believed that the Earth is pulling off 2 types of radiation because the Earth's core is rotating along with the rest of the Earth, but not in perfect tandem. So it's putting off this massive amount of radiation. Now that radiation is then being pulled by the sun to where it looks almost like an egg shape outside of Earth. Now, the rays from the sun come in, hit that, and acts as a protective shell. But sometimes the power of those rays or those solar flares hit it and cause cracks in the radiation coming off of the Earth. And there's actually a greater amount of radiation coming off of the Earth than there is on the surface of the sun. Now it makes cracks in that outside shell of the Earth's radiation. It gets through. But then there's a second line of defense. The second line of defense are the radiated shocks that are coming out of the Earth's oceans that are heated and all these other things that are going on. If it gets past there, there's a third line of defense, which is the atmosphere. So that's why you hear that white noise. That's not just the white noise of space. That's the radiation coming from the Earth, the first line, the second line, and the third line. And then also what you're hearing is the vortexus pull, the idemia of the actual universe, because the planets are being pulled by the sun. The sun's being pulled by the galaxy. The galaxy's being pulled by the celestial equator of the universe that we are in. And then this universe is being pulled by the celestial equator of the other universe, and so on, and so on, and so on. And this is our understanding of cosmology. And that's why, and the strange thing about it is, every other civilization that has a mandala, the only way they'd have a mandala with the 12 lunar houses and the 28 lunar houses of the moon and the 12 lunar houses of the sun, the only way they'd have those is if they had the same vortexus understanding of the universe that we did. Which means that it's all coming from here, or another book that was revealed. The idea that, no, the universe is a vacuum. The universe is a total vacuum. Then what happened? Well, obviously, they said, listen, the universe is a vacuum. You leave Earth, you're in a vacuum. Well, the vacuum doesn't have any force. So what's pulling on Pluto? There's no force in a vacuum. So what's pulling on Pluto? What's pulling on Neptune? What's trying to pull the atmosphere off of Earth? What's coming from that? Because it's not the sun. Then the moon has its own pull. But then the moon is also being pulled on by something else. So something else is going on. Now, when they believed that the universe outside of the Earth was a vacuum. So listen, it's a vacuum. Then it created another problem. Which was what? Well, we have the sun and the sun out there, and we have all these stars out there. Well, in a vacuum, there's no oxygen. So now how do you account for the fact that fire requires two things? Oxygen and fuel. So then now that they did that, they had to come with a new theory and say, well, wait a minute, hold on. How's the sun functioning? So then they came up with the principle of nuclear fission. Sun's refiring itself, it's got levels of helium, it's got all these other things going on. But then it created another issue. Because now they go out in space and they have thrusters. And they go up so far, cut the thrusters off. Now, if there's no oxygen in space, you have to answer this question. If there's no oxygen in space, is a perfect vacuum, as we've been taught scientifically, according to Western civilization, then how did they fire the thrusters to get back from the moon to here when they went? How did they fire the thrusters to get from the low Earth orbit back inside of the planet when they got here? Now, this should make you understand two things. Number one, they know that the universe outside is a vortex. They know that it is. But they're allowing the garbage to stay in the textbooks so that no one else gets any other ideas. Because the moment you understand, wait a minute, hold on, the whole universe is a vortex, which means things are being pulled on, that means that we're pretty much living in a magnetically charged environment. If we're living in a magnetically charged environment, that means energy and natural resources can probably almost certainly be pulled straight out of the air. Because everything's charged around you. And if everything's charged around you, then that opens up the door to now starting to discuss the human body in a different way. Because now we can start to talk about where we think the electromagnetic pulses come from in the brain. And there have been numerous books written by our scholars about the electromagnetic pulses, the fact that the bodies have either electric or a negative charge, and when they die, sometimes they go from negative to positive, sometimes positive to negative. Because it all goes back to that understanding of cosmology. And then you start looking into the theory regarding concussions. Because when someone gets hit in the head and they suffer a concussion, there's an electric shock that takes place, and the melanin level in the brain goes down. And people that initially suffer a concussion, when their eyes are first looked at after the initial concussion, they're blue. Why? Because the melanin level in the brain's gone down. Why? What happened? There was electric shock that zapped them, because that's what that represents, that concussion. Now, the only way to explain a lot of this stuff and break it down is to go to the vortexal understanding of the creation around us. Then you start talking about the precession of the sun. Then you start saying, well, hold on. How long does it take? How long then would it take the galaxy to precess once around the celestial equator of the universe? And there's been discussions, 10,000 years. Some say it's this, some say it takes that long. And there have been discussions, has it happened before? Maybe that could be a reason why the poles look like they've reset it or why they've moved slightly. Right? Maybe that could be a reason why the planet, it's on a certain axis now, but maybe the axis wasn't so extreme before, because we're finding examples of woolly mammoths in the Antarctic and find them in Alaska. And we know that woolly mammoths, they have a certain body temperature and everything else. We're finding dinosaur bones now in Alaska and other places. What are they doing way up there? And they're warm-blooded because they were lizards. Because dinosaur just means terrible lizard. That's all it means. Now, before 1844, were there dinosaurs? Yeah. But they gave the name dinosaur so that it had a specific ruling that it belonged to, so then they could carry on with the evolution chicanery that they were doing. So now you have a problem, because what are they doing all the way up there? The moment you acknowledge the reason why they're way up there is because the conditions on the planet were different and weren't exact as they are now, which now pokes a hole in the eye of evolution, because the whole idea of evolution, that this process has been taking place over billions of years and that the conditions did not happen and that there have been very slight, slow, steady changes over 4.6 billion years, which is now the current theory. Did you know before it was 50 million? Never mind. The point of the matter is when you have a certain understanding about cosmology, that has a trickle-down effect on everything else. Now, I brought something. I did some printouts. These printouts are a breakdown of how understanding the precession of the world, because all these mandalas that are around the world, now that I've given you this long introduction, I want you to now, when you think about looking at the signs of the seasons, I've given you the seasons, right? Winter, fall, summer, spring, right? Now, if you flip over the piece of paper, you have now 4 marks here, which represent the 4 seasons. They represent the 4 seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see the signs of the zodiac, and as you can see, they're what? The constellations that show up at certain portions of the year. That's what these are here for. Now, if you want to know which season goes in which blank spot, you can flip the paper back over, take a look, and find out exactly where they go. Now, you will find these everywhere on Earth. This structure that you see, which is blank right now, it's called a mandala. You find them in Central America, South America, North America, all throughout Africa, Central Asia. Everyone somehow knew that there's 4 seasons, that there's some type of structure moving, that the sun goes through 12 solar houses as it's going through a position as it moves through the sky, that it has a celestial equator, and that the moon has 28 lunar houses that it goes through. It has 28 lunar houses. So the moon goes through this process as well. It has its own little structure that it's moving on. And the sun has its own little structure that it's moving on. Now then people started to base calendars around this stuff as well. Now what happened with creating what's known as, and I'll come to a close on this in a moment, what happened when you created what's called the lunisolar progression, where people decided that we're going to make our lunar calendar and the solar calendar, we're going to harmonize them. So we force January to always come at one time. We force December to always come at one time. So the calendar is no longer moving with the seasons. Like the lunar calendar, it moves with the seasons. Sometimes Ramadan shows up in summer, blazing hot. Sometimes Ramadan shows up in winter, cold as anything. Right? It's going through the seasons. Why? Because you're dealing with the precession of the moon. And you're also dealing with the precession of the sun. And both are being bent out of shape. Why is the moon being bent out of shape? Well, the earth's pulling on it, sun's pulling on it. What's pulling on the sun? Why is it bent out of shape? Although it's a white dwarf, which is the smallest type of star, what on earth's bending it out of shape? So then you have to start having these discussions about vortexal universe. Now, there's a couple of geniuses out there that have now figured this out. But they had to wind up studying the old languages to get it through their head. Back to the discussion regarding Dr. Jeffrey Weeks, saying that this universe that we live in has an end. It's soccer ball shaped, but it's bulging on the ends, just like how the Earth is. Right? Other scientists have discussed vortex universe. You look it up, you go to your local library, if you want to download some stuff. They're having to come to the discussion as well. But they've come back around to it. Ancient Egyptians had it. Yeah, but the ancient Egyptians, they're kuffar. Yeah, but being a kafir doesn't exempt you from having knowledge of the seasons and what's going on around you. Can a kafir do arithmetic? Yes. Can a kafir understand algebra? Yes. Can a kafir count money? Yes. So this doesn't excuse you from having knowledge. Because he's a kafir. How could they know the ancient Egyptians are kafirs? Yes, but they had mandalas. On the inside of the pyramidal walls tells you how to use the different structures and all the seasons. That stuff is there for a purpose. Now, Allah has put this in the Qur'an, which means that there's some use for it, because he says that the moon has manazil. Now, we're going to come to that in just a moment, because we have both the moon and the sun. Now, how are we supposed to go about measuring our months by? And Allah gives us the distinction to say, listen, this is how you measure your months. This is how you measure your years. And he gives us a breakdown of that. But the sun is to help you structure your seasons. When do you plant? When do you do stuff? And maybe in the future, if you head to another country, especially if it's your ancestral country, maybe you'll get a look at the door now. Maybe you'll find a mandala. Maybe you'll find something on top of a building and say, I always wondered why that was there. And you'll start to find out that maybe the guys that live in the village or the Bedouins, they're not so stupid after all. We've been told we're so smart because we know Microsoft Word. But these are guys that figured it out, and they figure it out every year. There was a discussion, I'll end on this before moving back. Recently, they were in the United States speaking to a farmer. And they asked him how his crop was. And he gave a breakdown, using his mandala, a breakdown of seasonal shifts, changes in soil, deviations of the sun, and changes in the overall quality of his crops going back to his grandfather's generation. Yeah, there's these occasional shifts, these happen, but this time what's happened is the soil's got far too much nitrogen in it now. Why? How do you know it's got too much nitrogen? Because he's not a genius. He doesn't have 17 degrees in his closet. How do you know the soil's got too much nitrogen? He says, well, listen, when I'm growing my legumes, they grow much quicker than they used to before. And then my corn sometimes isn't growing at all. Sign of nitrogen. Excessive amounts of nitrogen. But he's supposed to be stupid because he hasn't gone to Harvard or the Ivy League. But he's figured it out because he has one of these and he's been using it. As long as he goes back. Because why? Where did the Pilgrims get it from? Well, from the Native Americans before they showed them the muskets. Well, where did they get it from? Well, they've had it as long as they've had it. So it's always been there. So this idea that this universe that we're living in is teeming with life, stuff is pulling on it, it's not just this big empty mass. Now, once you look at that and understand and break all that down, this understanding of a vortex, then you're like, okay, well, if all this stuff is being pulled on, because everything's not coming together, it's going apart. Even they'll tell you that, and they can't figure out why. They've got theories. They've got theories for you, don't they? Well, the reason why it's going apart is because it's going away from the source of the Big Bang. Oh, okay. Well, then can we ask why the radiation levels, if it's been going apart from the time of the Big Bang, and the universe is eternal, the radiation marks should be static. But they're not. They look like an EEG monitor. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And they're going short, long, short, tall, short, tall. That's a sign that there's some type of outside interference. But what could outside interference could there be if the universe is eternal? What's wrong with this picture? So we have to look at things as these things are there. Something's pulling all this stuff apart. Galaxies are being stretched and pulled. They're all distorted. The Milky Way looks distorted for a reason. It's not because, oh, we just thought it was that shape and it looked nice. Things are distorted. All the galaxies are pulled. All the planets, if you notice, they're flat on the tops and they're bulging out like eggs. That's not because, well, we just went with this design because it just felt right. They're looking like that for a reason. The sun is getting pulled. Why? And the sun has its own orbit and its axis of a sorts. Why? Because it's moving. And just think, we've been told in the Qur'an that this is the case. Our scholars have told us this is the case. They've written books on the fact that the universe is doing this in this way and all these other things are happening. Now, we've learned all that just to come all the way back to what we knew in the first place. And it took Dr. Jeffrey Weeks and a number of guys to tell us the difference. Now we're back at it again. Went away from it, now we're back at it. Now you find people here again. Now they've got sundials on top of their houses. They dropped them, got rid of them in the Renaissance. Now we're back at them again. Because all the ancients were supposed to be stupid. Now we're back at the sundials again and back at the mandalas again. So I'm not telling anybody to get out tarot cards and start drawing your horoscope and finding out what lunar house you were born in. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that there's a structure in place. If you notice all these constellations, the breakdown of the seasons, all these other things, which points to what? That the sun precesses. Just like the earth precesses. Earth has an axis and it precesses. Sun precesses. Something's pulling on it. Just like the earth's being pulled on. All this stuff is happening and it has purpose and reason behind it. And that goes back to an understanding of cosmology. If you have a messed up theology, you got a messed up cosmology. You got a messed up cosmology, you got a messed up soteriology. And it's all crazy in the end. So you have to look at it from that standpoint. Now, the Imam, he goes on to say, quote, "And when the Exalted One has said that meaning what's been mentioned about the night, the day, and the sun, is the design and dominion of the Almighty and the All-Knowing, because He knows what He designed. ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. And the moon, وَالْقَمَرَ. Now it's been recited by Ibn Kathir, Nafi' and Abu Amr as وَالْقَمَرُ, whereas Asim ibn Amr Hamza al-Kisai recited as وَالْقَمَرَ. As Zajjaj has said, whoever recites it as وَالْقَمَرَ, it means, and we ordained the moon, and we've ordained its manazil, its lunar houses. Whoever recites it وَالْقَمَرُ, it means, and also the moon is a sign for them and we've designed for it lunar houses as well as solar houses. The scholars of commentary say the lunar houses are 28 in number, from the first of the month to the end of the month. Now, we have already discussed the names of these lunar houses in Surah Yunus, the 10th Surah, Ayah 5. Now, when the moon gets to the end of its lunar house, it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner until finally it looks like a stalk of corn, a crescent shape. And when it gets to that point, it resembles a hilal, but in the opposite direction. Ibn Qutaybah has said, so here we have the explanation of the moon resembling as it does going through its 28 lunar houses, and it continues to do so until it reaches the end of the month. The sun does not overtake the moon, nor the moon overtake the sun. لَلشَّمْسُ يَنْبَغِي لَهَا أَن تُدْرِكَ الْقَمَرَ. This means that when they're both together in the sky, one of them is in front of the other or one of them is passing on the other. But they do not share the same houses. They move in different processions. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Also, the light of the sun does not look like the light of the moon. One is hot and one is cold. This was said by Mujahid. They also do not share the same time. So when the sun's light is shining, the moon's light is not predominant. And when the moon is shining, the sun's disk and light is not predominant in the sky. So the authority of one is over the other and not at the same time, as mentioned by Qatada. And this is a wisdom, because the distribution of light has been given, and we can't fully appreciate this at night until we really consider. And the night does not outstrip the day, nor the day the night. So the night does not take precedence before the completion of the day. The day must complete its time, and the night must complete its time. The night doesn't come after a night. Night comes after a day. There is a distinction between them. The rest of this ayah is discussed and has been discussed in commentary already in Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st Surah, ayah 33. Allah the Exalted, when mentioning لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون, and each is in a path, يسبحون, swimming, moving along. Close quote. Now something very important, very quick on this before moving to the next page. Again, the moon has 28 lunar houses. The sun has 12 that it moves through. Also, the moon goes through a process. I'll mention two things about it. Well, three actually, excuse me. At the beginning of a month, when the hilal is sighted, the sun has that crescent shape. That signifies the new month that is called the hilal. The way the moon looks in the first 4 days of a month, first 5 days of a month, that is called hilal. Every time after that, it becomes qamar. It becomes qamar. So from day 5 up until into the 20s, that is called qamar. Then it becomes hilal again. Now on day 28, there is no light any longer on the moon. This is called mahaq. Mahaq means new moon. That's day 28. We know for a fact, if somebody finds out when the 28th of a month is, then all you've got to do now is wait outside the next day. Once you know when mahaq is, mahaq can be known. It happens every 28 days. What we're looking for is when the moon has illumination on it, which is the day that's going to come right after. Mahaq is easy to know. When you can't find it anymore, you can't see it at all on a clear day, okay, we must be in mahaq. Unless you missed it. Mahaq, there's no illumination. You physically cannot see it. Now, the day after that is where now you're looking for the hilal. That's going to tell you this is the new month. So you have the hilal, the mahaq, then there's finally when it reaches the 15th. This is called Badr. Badr means full moon. The Badr is the full moon. Right? So when it is completely illuminated, 100% illuminated, that is called Badr. So you have mahaq, new moon, there's nothing on it. It's getting ready to become number 2, which is hilal. It goes through the whole process. It reaches the 15th. 15th is Badr. 15th is Badr. After that, it starts getting smaller again, shortening up, till finally it's very, very thin again. This again is known as the hilal. Right, so these are the 3 major phases that it goes through. Now, the expression وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ, and each one, this is talking about the sun and the moon. Each one is swimming in its own. Now, falak in Arabic can refer to a spinning wheel. It can refer to a rotation. Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Hazm, and other scholars say this all refers to the fact that the planets are round, just like Earth is round, and they rotate. They move. Ibn Kathir in his Tafsir Quran Al-Azim, under the discussion on this ayah, he says, when it is light on one side of the earth, when it is daytime on one side of the earth, it is nighttime on the other. Now remember now, let's get our thinking caps on. This is the mid-1300s of the Gregorian calendar. Nothing out here in Europe but grass. And maybe 4 or 5 books on a shelf. So, Imaduddin Ismail ibn Kathir is saying, when it's light on one side of the planet, daytime on one side of the planet, it's night on the other. It's night on the other. He's coming to this conclusion early 1300s. This is before the great trips of Magellan, Columbus's 1492 journey, which Europe finally finds out, if you go as far as you can towards the horizon, you don't fall off. You just keep right on going. This is before Magellan's trip around Africa. He wasn't eaten. He made it back safe. Made it from there to Portugal, came back with gold and other things. We're talking about before this time. Longitude and latitudinal maps had already been drawn with the equator. Well, what is the equator? It's a map. When you draw longitudinal and latitudinal lines, longitude, long, latitude, ladder. Ladder's going up, down. Longitude's going across. Equator. Why? Because does the Earth have this magical line right in the middle? No. So why have they drawn that? Well, they're drawing that in relation to the celestial equator. How would you draw a celestial equator? Well, the only way you could draw it on a celestial equator is if there's a precession. The only way to have a precession is if you're living in a vortex. So longitudinal, latitudinal lines, we're back at it again. Now, your twice divorced balding professor, he's not going to tell you that. Because he probably doesn't know how to tell you that and probably doesn't know what that means. Unfortunately for him. But what I would say is it's an opportunity for us to really, really start thinking about the creation that we live in. The fact that, forget about the 11 theological issues that Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah has. He understands that the planets are rotating, that they're round, that the earth is too, that stars are, and they're moving in orbit because fi falakin yasbahun. Because falak is like an orbit, yasbahun, sabah means to swim or to float. Floating in what? Well, what's out in our creation? What's out in space? What's all that stuff out there? It's floating in something. It's made out of something. But we stumbled across this 1400 years ago. Now, heck man, we're busy studying Darwin. We're not studying vortex and conics equation. We're busy studying Darwin. While they're out there knowing about a vortex universe and trying to get 147,000 miles away to another planet and try to set up colonies, they're giving us the books with a bushy-haired old guy in there named Darwin and giving us that. Say, here, you take these. Same thing they've done with the gold. We take the gold, we'll give you guys the paper with our face on it. We have to really, really, really consider very carefully the whole creation around us. The whole point of this little vignette that I'm giving you is to understand that our scholars are looking at this whole thing differently. Why do you suppose they say, last point before going back, why do you suppose they say that certain foods are hot? Certain foods have a hot charge. Certain foods have a cold charge. And when they classify foods, when they talk about foods, they say this food is hot, it's a fire food. This is a water food. This is an air food. This is an earth food. Why? Unless it's believed that the body has an electromagnetic charge. All these things are being discussed in our books. You can look in Al-Adab al-Shar'iyya. So I think some of it went 747 over the head. But I think when we discussed the different types of food, it mentioned that ginger's a hot food. And sometimes you have scholars, when someone will go to like one of our people that specializes an ushab or an ashib, someone who's an herbalist in the Arab world, they'll say, well, what are you eating? They'll say, oh, I'm having this. And, no, you're way too hot. Your abdomen's way too hot. No wonder. Take this food, it'll cool down your spleen. Why does my spleen need to be cooled down? Your kidneys need to be cooled, and your spleen needs to be cooled down, and your heart needs to be warm. And they're telling you, yeah, there's too much of a negative charge in your blood. Huh? There's a negative charge in my blood? Well, think it's going to your brain and going back and forth, isn't it? Got to be a charge in there. You ever walk across a carpet and then grab the doorknob? Where's that charge coming from? Your plug? It's coming from you. Why? Because we've been stressing already. Vortexal universe, electromagnetic charges, whole world of magnetism around you. So what I want you to do is open up your skull, take your brain out, put the hypothalamus back in, right? Because you suffered a concussion, your eyes have blued slightly. Scientifically, they've been blued. Let the melanin rush back into the eyes and really look at the creation around you. How everything's moving, how we've got all this electricity in the air. That's what we're using for our mobile phones, aren't we? For the satellites that are launching, broadband, all that stuff is relying on what? Electromagnetism, electricity in the air, certain currents and charges. That's why we've moved away from all these other things before. Now we're just using stuff that we're pulling out of the air. You can pull people's phone calls out of the air. Just grab them. You don't even have to go and unscrew their phone and put the tap line in how you used to, or put like a tap behind the lamp and you'd listen in. You don't need to do that anymore. Now if someone's on the phone, you can pull their conversation right out of the air and just listen to it. Because that's the world that we live in. Now the Imam goes on to say, quote, and then the Exalted One says, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمْ أَنَّا حَمَلْنَا ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ فِي الْفُلْكِ الْمَشْحُونِ وَخَلَقْنَا لَهُمْ مِنْ مِثْلِهِ مَا يَرْكَبُونَ وَإِنْ نَشَأْ نُغْرِقْهُمْ فَلَا صَرِيخَ لَهُمْ وَلَا هُمْ يُنْقَذُونَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً مِنَّا وَمَتَاعًا إِلَى حِينٍ وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّقُوا مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَمَا خَلْفَكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ وَمَا تَأْتِيهِمْ مِنْ آيَةٍ مِنْ آيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ إِلَّا كَانُوا عَنْهَا مُعْرِضِينَ وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فَالْيَوْمَ لَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَلَا تُجَزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And a sign for them is that we carried their progeny in the boat that floated. We created for them from his likeness that which they ride. And if we had willed, we could have drowned all of them without any return for them, and they would not have been saved, except as a mercy from us, and to be preserved for a little while. When it said to them, beware of that which comes before you and after you, so that you might be shown mercy. And whatever comes to them of a sign from the signs of their Lord, they run from it, as is always the case with them. When it said to them, spend of that which Allah has sustained you with, those who reject faith say to those who believe, shall we feed the one who, if Allah had so willed, he could have fed him himself? Indeed, you are in clear error. They say, when is this promise coming, if you're truthful in your claim? But they shall not be given any respite. They wait for only one single blast that shall overtake them, while they are busy in their disputations. They will not be able to move 1 inch, nor will they be able to return back to their people. When the horn is blown into, they shall run headlong from their tombs, running down from every place, coming up from every place. They will say, woe be to us, who resurrected us from our resting place? This is what the most merciful promised, and the messenger spoke the truth. Indeed, only one blast shall come to them. They shall all be gathered in front of us in ranks. Today, no soul shall be oppressed. No one shall be rewarded with except that which they used to do. Surah Yasin, the 36th Surah, ayat 41 to 54. The Exalted One, when he says, a sign for them is that we carried their progeny. Nafi' ibn Amr recite this ayah as dhurriyatihim in the plural form, while the rest recite it as dhurriyatahum, which is the singular form of the word dhurriyah. The scholars of commentary say, the expression fulk referred to here refers to the fulk of Nabiyuna Nuh alayhi salam. And the reason why the singular form is referred to when Allah is speaking to those gathered present that are listening to the Qur'an is because they are from that singular progeny. It is as if He, Allah, is saying the singular progeny of humanity. Al-Farra has said, Dhurriya is a singular, and this is the singular seed that they came from. So He, Allah, made that singular seed the source for all of them and preceded all of them. And this singular seed also carried all the prophets in the backs of their fathers when they were carried on the ark. And because of this, Al-Abbas radiallahu anhu said, indeed, there was only a drop that was carried on the ark. And already that drop went forward, and all the others were drowned without the least bit of spark. Al-Mufaddal ibn Salama said, the word dhurriya in this context is referring to the lineage, because Allah gave them the lineage, and their lineage came through their fathers. Because the dhurriya, the seed came from them, and they are the product of their fathers. And this is what has been discussed. We've already mentioned ذُرِّيَّةً بَعْضُهَا مِنْ بَعْضٍ. Lineage, progeny, one from another. Surah Ali Imran, the 3rd Surah, 23. And when it says mashhoon, in reference to the ark, mashhoon means that it's full. So it was full with creatures. Close quote. Now something very important. You may have heard the expression, you are of your father. Now the reason why it says, all the scholars, again, we're back at a little bit of cosmology, but also back at an understanding of a little bit of genetics. When someone says you are of your father, people used to say that expression, and they meant that you are what your fathers are. That's why people talk about their forefathers, not their foremothers. Your forefathers, your fatherland. They'll mention your mother tongue, but they mention your forefathers and your fatherland. Why? Why do they say that these men are in the backs of their forefathers? Well, when the man ejaculates, there is fluid that is collected from all over his body. And that fluid, when it's secreted, the amount of fluid, he loses an incredible amount of zinc, an incredible amount of fluid all throughout his body. And he ejaculates that out. Now, you get each kid, when they meet and it forms a child, sperm meets the egg, forms a child, you get 2 X's, that's from your mom, and an X and a Y, that's from your dad. The moment you get those X's from your mother, it's like recording a Memorex tape, and then the tape skips slightly. Because a corruption comes immediately in the DNA sequence. So your mom gives you your 2 X's, and the record skips. Immediately. You know the dad gives you his Y? Never changes. That's how they've been able to do all the haplogroup work, all the genetic work. Do you know when the dad gives you his Y, it never skips? It's the same all the way through. They look for genetic abnormalities in the X. The Y, the same Y that I've got running through me, is the same Y my dad gave me all the way back. No change in the Y. People originally thought, well, the Y is so small and stubby. It's just a corruption of the X, really. It's nothing special. Who cares about the Y? Let's focus on the X. So they found out that you get from X, which is your mother's side, you get the genes for male pattern balding. You get from the X, the cleft palate. You get from the X all different types of stuff. But people were ignoring the Y. The Y is what tells all the other stuff to even work. To have a tongue. To be able to elicit speech. And to have the inner conchlea inside of your ears so you can stand up and have balance and to have a big toe. That comes from your Y. Your blood type comes from your Y. That thing has got to be uncorruptible in order for you to be able to speak, stand up, have balance, move, and to not be retarded. You need that Y. And it has to be without corruption. So you are the seed of your father. I know it doesn't sound cool, because this isn't the time for that. But you are the seed of your father. And that's why it mentions dhurriya in Arabic. One of the things about dhurriya means seed, and it's in the singular form. That's why the Imam is making a big deal. He's saying, why is it in the singular form? Why is it in the singular form? Why is it in the singular form? Because all other seed that wasn't aboard that ark is wiped out, isn't it? The only seed that's left is Nabiyyina Nuh alayhi salam, his sons, and their wives. Well, what's the big deal about that? Because that's coming from the original seed. Who? Nabiyyina Adam alayhi salam. So you have 4 men and their wives. They get off that place. You have Ham, Sam, Japheth, and their wives. And they go and populate the rest of the earth. Start the whole clock over again. But when all the scientists break it down, you get back to 7 people. Sometimes they say 7, sometimes more. But you get back to a number of people. You get back to 3 guys, number of girls. But you always get back to that one seed. The blood types all run back to one seed. All that stuff. So when it says it's carrying the seed, right? A sign for them is that we carry dhurriyatahum, the seed. Could have said seeds, but the seed, right? In the fulk, fil fulkil mashhoon, in the crowded ark. Crowded with what? All the stuff that was put on there. So it wasn't just people that were in there. Had the 3 sons, their wives, the dad, Nabiyyina Nuh alayhi salam, and his wife or wives. They're in there. And then there's also everything else they had to bring. So it was mashhoon, it was crowded inside of there. But we made it. So when the Prophet ﷺ is talking to the Meccans, because remember, he's reciting this first to them. They're hearing this and they're being told, you are that seed. Because the Meccans, they brag about their ancestors and their forefathers. They said, listen, let me tell you who you are. You are that seed. And by saying that, in a way, he's complimenting them because he's saying to them, that's no way to treat yourselves. Look at the idolatry that you're doing. Don't you know whose seed you are? Who your forefather? That's no way to treat yourself. Look at what Allah says. Allah says, we carried their seed in the ark that was full. We carried their seed. So if you're coming from that noble of a seed, there must have been a reason why Allah saved you in the ark. What, he saved you so you could come out and commit idolatry? No. He saved you because you're a good seed. Just like when people save seeds, now they've got all these seeds saved in Scandinavia. Why? Because they're the best ones. They've saved them. So obviously, if you've got the best seeds, you don't go up there and waste them and scatter them on the ground and everything. That seed's been saved because it's the best. We've saved that seed. So it's important why he mentioned dhurriya in the singular. Allah could have said plural. Whenever Allah's talking about the different families of the earth, like the Arabs, everything else, that's plural. Seeds. Why? Because we reproduce and everything else. When we're talking about the origin of the human race, dhurriya, seed. It's one. Because only one seed made it aboard the ark and didn't get wiped out. There's only one. When we go back, when we get to a certain level, the genetic code gets a little bit corrupted. Because we can't go back a certain level. After that, it's like, okay, we can't go any further back now. Everyone's carrying it, but we can't access it. It's like a door that's banged shut. But everything else going forward, we have a seed. Right? Now the Imam, he then goes on to say, and the Exalted One has also said, quote, the Exalted One has also said, and we created from them from its likeness, meaning from the Ark of Nuh. So from the Ark of Nuh, people have made other barges and many other types of boats. So Sa'id ibn Jubayr and Ibn Abbas both mention this, as well as Ad-Dahhak, Abu Malik, Abu Salih. So the creation of wood, which people are working with, found its perfection thereafter. Just the same thing with camels. Allah created them to be ridden. Allah created boats to be ridden on the water. Camels were created to be ridden on land. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Ikrimah, Al-Hasan al-Basri, and Qatada. So they went aboard there. Had Allah wanted to, He could have put them aboard the ark without any sustenance nor safety, nor would they have been saved from drowning. But instead, Allah gave them His mercy. He had mercy on them and saved them for a time period. So when it's said to them, meaning the unbelievers, when it's said to them, meaning the unbelievers, beware of that which is in front of you and what's in back of you, meaning your sins. Said by Mujahid. It also refers to the punishment of Allah and the coming of the day of resurrection. It's said by Qatada. Beware of what's in front of you, this earthly life, what's in back of you, what's coming in the hereafter. It's said by Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Beware of what's in front of you, of the hereafter, and what's in back of you from the earthly life. Don't be deceived by the earthly life. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Al-Kalbi. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, so that you might receive mercy, that you might have hope in the mercy of Allah. And when it's said to them, they flee and turn away from that mercy. No sign comes to them that proves the truthfulness of the messenger except that they turn away. And when it's said to them, spend. Now this ayah was addressed to the children of Israel by Al-Hasan al-Basri. According to Al-Hasan al-Basri, it is also used to refer to the apostates who left the faith from among them. According to Qatada ibn Da'imah, and the idol worshippers of the Quraysh, is said by Muqatil. So the believers, they said to the unbelievers of Mecca, spend on the poor people the excess wealth that you claim is for Allah. What you have of cattle and what you have of hearth. The idol worshippers respond by saying, shall we feed the one who, if Allah had so willed, he could have fed such a one? Ibn Sa'ib has said, Al-As ibn Wa'il, when he was asked by a poor person for sustenance and help, he said, why don't you go to your Lord? He has more right to look after you than me and feed you. And he said, well, look at this person. Allah has prevented him. Surely Allah could feed him. How can I feed who Allah has prevented from being fed? So the meaning of this speech is they're saying that if Allah wanted, he could have to sustain them, he would have sustained them. Now listen, we agree with the will of Allah regarding that matter. But we don't say as the unbelievers who say, well, we agree with the will of Allah, so we won't feed them. This is a grave error, because Allah, the Exalted, has given some of the creation more sustenance than others, and He's made some people to be poor, so that He might test the rich by means of the poor. And He's made compulsory for the rich in their wealth to give of the zakah to the poor. The believer doesn't run from his responsibilities and use an excuse with the will of Allah. Rather, he agrees with the command of Allah. The unbelievers, when they said this as well, said so in a mocking tone because they did not want to assist others. And when Allah the Exalted said, you are only in clear error, this is from the statement of the unbelievers to the believers, because they're saying, well, you're mistaken. How can you be followers of Muhammad? And look, you're telling people to feed the poor, when if Allah had wanted them fed, He would have fed them. But Allah has refuted the unbelievers by the answer He gave to the believers. Then when the unbelievers say, when is this promise coming true? Meaning the day of resurrection. If you're truthful, meaning Muhammad and his followers, they will not be given any respite, مَا يَنْظُرُونَ, except one blast, meaning the blowing of the horn the first time. While they're disputing, they'll be taken unaware. Now, from Abu Amr and Asim and Ibn Amr and Al-Kasai, they recite يَخِصِّمُونَ. But Asim and others say يَخِصِّمُونَ, while Nafi' and others say يَخْصِمُونَ. Hamza cites it as يَخْصِمُونَ, while Ibn Ubay ibn Ka'ab says يَخْتَصِمُونَ. So while they're busy disputing and arguing, it comes upon them. And they're not able to get away from it. Nor can they return to their people, to the markets, to their homes. This is the description of what will happen when the horn is blown the first time. Then, when the horn is blown the second time. وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. Then the resurrection, and they come out of their graves to their Lord. And they will come out quickly. Now, we've already discussed this in Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st Surah 96. They will say, woe be to us who resurrected us from our resting place. Ali ibn Abi Talib, Abu Razin, Ad-Dahhak, Asim Juhdari recite this as Min Ba'athina. The scholars of commentary say, they only say this because Allah the Exalted took them from the punishment which they were suffering between the two blowings of the horn. Ubay ibn Ka'ab said, so they were having some relief in between the punishment they were suffering before the resurrection. And so when they are resurrected, they say this word. This is what the Most Merciful promised. This is the statement of the believers, as said by Mujahid and Qatada, Ibn Abi Layla, whereas the unbelievers were saying what was before. So the first of the ayahs for the unbelievers, the last of the ayahs for the believers. The angels also say, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنِ. This is what the Most Merciful has promised. The idol worshippers and unbelievers say to each other, who's brought this about? Who's brought us back after we had been in our resting place? But then Allah mentions the second blowing of the horn. إِن كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ. It should be only one blowing. So after this, it's clear and manifest that the people of the paradise, إِنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ الْيَوْمَ, meaning the people of the paradise in the hereafter, which is the second blowing of the horn. So Allah the Exalted says, إِنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ الْيَوْمَ فِي شُغُلٍ فَاكِهُونَ هُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُهُمْ فِي ظِلَالٍ عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ مُتَّكِئُونَ لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. Indeed, the companions of the paradise today are in a noble endeavor, enjoying their time. They and their spouses are in shade, reclining on furniture of goodness. They have in it every fruit, and they have what they call for. Peace is the statement from the Lord that is most compassionate. The excellence of the day shall not be lost on those who are the criminals. Was not a covenant given to you, children of Adam, not to worship Shaitan, and that he is a clear enemy to you, and that you should worship me alone? This is the straight path. Already there are among you who are many that were led astray. Do you not think? This is the great fire which you were promised. Roast in it today because of how you rejected faith. Today we shall put on their mouths seals, and their hands and their feet shall speak of what they earned. Already, if we had willed, then we could have blinded their eyes and put forward the path. Oh, how far astray from the path they are when they see the truth. And if we had willed, we could have transformed them in their places, so that they are not able to ever have any illumination nor return. And whoever we so will, who's given a long life in the creation, he is given so. Do they not reflect? And we have not taught him poetry, nor is it right for him that he should learn it. He only knows the remembrance and the clear Qur'an, so that he might warn whoever is living and give the truth of the statement against the unbelievers. Surah Yasin, 36th Surah, ayat 55 to 70. So the Exalted One mentions the promise of the Lord of all creation, and that the people of the paradise are in the hereafter. Now, Ibn Kathir, Nafi', Abu Amr say, Fi shughlin. While some say, Fi shughlin. Fi shughlin. In which the ghain is without a madmoom. Asim ibn Amr, Hamza al-Kasai say, Fi shughlin. Wa Abu Hurairah, Abu Raja, Abu Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani say, Fi shaghalin. Abu Majlis, Abu al-Aliya, Ikrimah, al-Dahak, al-Nakhai, Ibn Ya'mar and al-Jahdari say, Fi shaghlin. Now, their effort, their work, their pastime will be enjoying themselves, as said by Ibn Mas'ud, Mujahid ibn Abbas, as well as Sa'id ibn Musayyib, Qatada and al-Dahak, and enjoying their time, as said by Ikrimah from Ibn Abbas, and enjoying the favors of Allah, and knowing that they're safe from the punishment of the great fire. They shall be in a state of enjoyment. Ibn Mas'ud, Abu Abdur-Rahman al-Sulami, Abu al-Mutawakkil, Qatada bin Da'ima, Abu al-Jawza, al-Nakha'i, Abu Ja'far, recited as fakihun, rather than fakihun. Now, what's the difference between these? Well, really, there is no substantive difference. Whereas fakihun means that they shall be blessed and rejoicing. They shall be in wonder about what they see. They shall be benefactors of the blessings that they get. And this was mentioned by Abu Malik and Muqatil, that they are possessors of the goodness, that they are possessors of what's good. As far as fakihun, without the alif, then it means that they shall have fruits, and they shall have all of the goodness of the food and the fruits and the vegetation of the paradise. This was mentioned by Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi and others. They and their spouses, meaning those spouses that have been made permitted for them, will be reclining in the shade. Fi dhilalin. Whereas Hamza al-Kasai and Khalaf say Fi dhulalin. Al-Farra says Fi dhilali. Whereas others say Wal dhulali. Dhullatin. And other expressions. But they shall be reclining. And they have what they shall call for. So meaning, just as the people of paradise will call for goodness, and Allah will give them that promise. And Allah will take away whatever pains they have. And this is the blessing where Allah says a statement and a word, and they feel at ease. They shall have all of what they asked for. And the criminals, as for them, they'll be cut away from the believers, and there will be a distinction made between them. Because those who are unbelievers and those who are believers have a distinction. Now, the question is made because the scholars of commentary say, when the human beings and jinn intermingle in the hereafter, it's said, today the criminals will be set apart, meaning the criminals from the jinn and the men. Did we not make a covenant for you and tell you not to worship Shaitan, who is Iblis, and he made shirk fair seeming to him, and they obeyed him? They obeyed him, and that he is a clear enemy, and caused your ancestors to be brought down from the paradise? Did I not say that you should worship me and me alone? This is the straight path, meaning Tawheed. And many were led astray from before that time. Many generations. Do you not use your intellect to think? Meaning, have you not seen the signs of those who were destroyed before you because they obeyed shaitan? Don't you think about that? This was said by Ibn Abbas, Abu Razin, Abu Abdur-Rahman Al-Sulami, Abu Raja, Mujahid, Ibn Ya'mar, and others. This is the great fire which you were promised in this earthly life. You will now be roasted therein and feel its heat. Today is the day in which a seal shall be placed upon their mouths. So they will not be allowed to speak, but the hands and feet will speak. Now, they used to say, Wallahi Rabbina ma kunna mushrikeen. By Allah, our Lord, we never used to associate partners. Surah An'am, the 6th Surah, ayat 23. Allah shall put a seal on their mouths, so that they'll have to speak with just their limbs, because they will lie out of fear, as said by Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So they might know that their limbs, which were helping them to do their evil deeds, their limbs actually were reporting them as well and taking account. And also the people can see that the limbs make a differentiation between what the mouth betrays. The limbs affirm what was done with the tongue and what was done with the other limbs. So if it's said, what is the wisdom in why the hands shall speak and why the feet shall speak and bear witness? The answer to this question is because the hand is the direct accessor to the power. It carries out the judgment that the tongue gives. And the feet bear witness because they're present. So they both stand as witnesses of the truth. If we willed, we could have blinded their eyes, meaning if we willed, we could have caused their vision to go. They could have been blinded. So now go to the pathway so that you might now see the truth. And if we had willed, we could have transformed them in their places. We've already discussed Masakh in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd Surah, 65. The Masakh here can refer to their destruction. It could have referred to them being laid low, said by Ibn Abbas, Al-Hasan. And they could have been pelted with stones and brimstone, as said by Abu Salih and Muqatil. And they also could have been made into apes and swine with no souls, as said by Ibn As-Sa'ib, without any illumination and no means to return. So there is no way to hide from the there would have had no way to hide from the punishment if this had happened. As for the one who's given a long life and lives in the creation, this one shall also not escape. Don't they reflect on this fact? We have not taught him poetry. The scholars of commentary say the unbelievers in Mecca used to say, this Qur'an is nothing but poetry, and Muhammad is a poet. But Allah the Exalted answered by saying, it's not for us to teach him poetry, nor is it right that he should learn it. So he did not learn poetry. And he did not tell others to learn it, although he said there is some truth in some poetry. Ibn Abbas, Al-Abbas who said, I bear witness that you are a messenger of Allah. Allah has not taught you poetry. It's not right for you that you would learn poetry. Abu Bakr said one day, may my father and mother be ransom for you. You have never said any bad word. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it doesn't harm you whatever poetry you might say. And Abu Bakr said, by Allah, you are not a poet though, and it's not right for you that you might be subjected to that. Abu Bakr further said, you are not a poet, and it's not right that poetry be attributed to you. And this is in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. So this means that he was forbidden from making poetry. So that way no doubt comes into the statement that he's coming with of the Qur'an. It is only, meaning the Qur'an, remembrance, and a clear Qur'an. So it has judgments, obligations, and sunan, so that you might warn. So that you might warn with this Qur'an, O Muhammad, so that you might warn the living. Everyone who is alive, meaning whose heart's alive, so that he might have insight, as said by Qatada. The one who has intellect, as said by Ad-Dahhak and as Zajjaj. Whoever reflects and can be spoken to, because the unbeliever, he's dead, because he abandons the warner. The one who's guided, as said by Sudai and said by Muqatil. Whoever's guided in the knowledge of Allah, whoever is a believer, as said by Yahya ibn Salam. This is the meaning of the statement, إِنَّمَا تُنذِرُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ, so that you might warn those who fear their Lord. Surah Fatir, ayat 18. So by that he warns whoever is a believer in the knowledge of Allah. And the truth is made manifest over the unbelievers. And this is the truth regarding the punishment that's to come, and the judgment bore witness against them in that regard. The Exalted One then says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّا خَلَقْنَا لَهُم مِّمَّا عَمِلَتْ أَيْدِينَا أَنْعَامًا فَهُمْ لَهَا مَالِكُونَ وَذَلَّلْنَاهَا لَهُمْ فَمِنْهَا رَكُوبُهُمْ وَمِنْهَا يَأْكُلُونَ وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا مَنَافِعُ وَمَشَارِبُ أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً لَعَلَّهُمْ يُنصَرُونَ لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قل من يحيي العظام وهو رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. Don't they see that we created for them of that which they bring forward in front of us? The cattle, some of them they have control over, and we cause to be subjected to them. The cattle, so they ride some of them and others they eat. They have benefits they take from them as well as drinks. Won't they be grateful? They take from besides Allah gods so that they might receive some help from them. But they can't help them, and they don't have any army for them that's present. Don't let them cause you to mourn due to their statements. We know what is in secret and what is manifest. Doesn't the human being see that we created him from a drop, and he was from a lowly fluid, yet he is argumentative? An example was given to us. He gives examples to us, but forgets his own creation. He said, who will give life to these bones when they're rotten away? Say, he will give life to them, the one who brought them about the first time. and He has knowledge over every creation. The one who made for you from the green trees a fire, so that you might kindle it and use it. Is it not then the one who created the skies and the earth able to then create their likeness? Indeed, He is the Creator, the All-Knowing. The command, when anything returns, He only says to it, be, and it is. Glorified is the one who in His hand has the dominions of everything, and to Him shall return all things. Surah Yasin, the 36th Surah, ayat 71 to 83. So don't they see that we created for them of that which we brought forward cattle? So the cattle, they have power over them, they can act over them, they have dominion over them. So they have been given that by Allah, as said by Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi. They find the fact that there are some that they have dominion over, as said by Qatada bin Da'ima, some that have been subjected for riding from, and some that they eat. As well as the fact that they have manifest benefits, whether it be the wool of some, the hair of camels, the hair of sheep, or their lineage because they raise livestock, and they also drink their milk. Aren't they thankful of the Lord who gives this bounty? Won't they declare Him as one and unique? Then He mentioned their ignorance. They take from besides Allah gods in order that they might receive help. So they might help them regarding the punishment of Allah, or inform them of things that they don't know. But they cannot give any help. No idols can. They can't stop any matter Allah has ordained. And they, the unbelievers, have in them, the idols, just an army that's a symbol in this earthly life, but it will be in the fire. It's about Hasan al-Basri. And they'll be gathered on the day of the accounting, as said by Mujahid. And the idol worshippers will be an army to the idols. And there will be anger showed towards them in this earthly life. There will be no good shown towards them, and no defense from their wickedness, as said by Qatada. Muqatil said the unbelievers will be angry towards the idols and false gods that are there in the earthly life on the day of resurrection. As the judges said, yes, the idols, people will seek protection by them. And whoever cannot help you, how can you seek protection? So do not let the words of them grieve you, meaning the words of the unbelievers of Mecca and denying you. We know what is secret regarding their secret plans and conspiracies, and what's manifest on their tongues, and what's not in their hearts, what's on their limbs. Do you not see the human being that he was created from a drop of fluid? So the drop of fluid, this question happened when Al-As ibn Wa'il al-Sahmi was there, and the Prophet ﷺ preached to him that Allah shall resurrect it after its death, and he said, yes, Allah shall cause you to die, then give you life, and He won't abandon you, but He will if He abandons you to the fire, the great fire, because you reject faith. And this was mentioned by Sa'id ibn Jubair from Ibn Abbas. The second is that Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul was also present. And this same incident was recorded by him, as well as Ibn Abbas. Abu Jahl ibn Hisham was also there. And this incident occurred, according to Ad-Dahhak and Ibn Abbas. Al-Rabi' was also there, and Umayyah ibn Khalaf was there. Asaba Hasan al-Basri. And Ubay ibn Khalaf al-Jumhi was there, and this story was laid out and mentioned to him. This was said by Mujahid, Qatada, and the vast majority. And this is what the scholars of commentary understand. So the meaning of the statement here is they're surprised at the ignorance of this false argument in rejecting resurrection. Don't they know that the creation was not that it was created? Don't they reflect on this? This likeness being given as a favor of Allah. Don't they think about these matters? This man was nothing but a drop of semen before. Now all of a sudden he's arguing. after having denied the resurrection, saying that the bones shall not come back, and he's holding them in his hand, he's forgotten his own creation, meaning that he came from a lowly fluid. Look at his condition. Saying, who will give life to these bones after they are rotten away? And he's saying, the same one. The same one. And he, the one who gave life to them, began the creation, shall begin it again when he resurrects. He knows all things. So, this is the matter. And when Allah has given the green trees. Now, why did he specifically say the green trees and not just trees to use as fuel? Why did he say the green trees? Well, one of the answers to this question is that the trees is plural. And it is mu'annath as well as the fact that it can be made mudhakkar. So Allah has said, their bellies will be filled with it. Ayah 53 of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, 56th Surah. فَإِذَا أَنْتُم مِّنْهُ تُوقِدُونَ. And when you kindle it, then he mentioned some of the greatest creations of Allah. So it's not the one who created the skies and the earth. Is he not able to do more than that he create their likeness? So this is to affirm the grandeur of what Allah has given. We've explained the meaning that he creates their likeness in Surah Bani Israel, the 17th Surah 99. Then he answered this disputation and said, well, he is the grand creator, creating creation after creation. This was said by all the scholars. And in the remainder of the surah, we've already discussed the remainder of the ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayah 32, ayah 117, and Surah Al-An'am, the sixth surah, ayah 75. Close quote. So this is the end of Surah Yasin. Right? So I say at this point, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين. We are in the 23rd juz. We are in a fourth of the way through the 45th hizb. Is there a question over what we've covered? Yes.
Sometimes when the sun's out, you can see the moon at the same time. How do we understand that event in relation to the ayah that the moon doesn't overtake the sun?
What that means is that their light, that ayah is talking about the fact that their light doesn't come at the same time. So the way that the sun shines in the sky, the moon won't shine the same way in the sky. Right? So at night, when you see the moon, the way it shines, the light it's giving off, sun's nowhere to be found. It's not giving off that light. When you see the sun in the sky, the moon's there, but it's in the faint distance. And it's not giving off the same light it gives off at night when it's dominant in the sky. So they don't dominate over, one is dominant over the other. When one's there, one's not, or if they're both there, one's dominant. Right? Any other question? Yes.
Did Nuh alayhi salam have his three sons, were they all from the same wife?
Nabiyyuna Nuh alayhi salam, whether his sons were from the same wife, we don't know how many wives he had. We have no idea, because Zawj and Azwaj can be plural. So that can mean two and more. Right? So we could have had two or more. We don't know how many wives he had. Yes?
With the universe being a vortex, obviously this is hypothetical, but could somebody sort of visualize what it would look like in terms of like the different universes? Is the second universe surrounding this universe, or is it series, or how?
Yeah, the question is regarding with understanding the universe being a vortex. Have there been discussions or schemas on what exactly the layout looks like of the universe? There have been discussions of it, and there have been some books of science of the past that have sort of drawn what it would look like, where sort of we're on Earth inside of sort of this kernel. We're like this kernel, and then there's all this stuff surrounding it. Sort of like, I suppose the best analogy I could put of their drawings is of a raisin inside of a baked piece of bread. Right, so there's all this bread surrounding it. You have the outer layer, then there's the crust and everything else, and we're sort of this seed inside of it. And that's sort of, we're this smidgen that's inside of this big, massive thing. But all that stuff is moving because it's all being pulled, it's being attracted and pulled by other stuff. But the idea that is often shown in the school, where there's the sun that's sitting on the model, and there's the other, and you can flick the little planets and they rotate around it. You know, that's the idea of understanding there's a vacuum, that the sun is stationary, which it's not, right? And all these other things. So yeah, there have been drawings on it. There have even, the scientists that have now started to talk about the universe as a vortex, they've even done model drawings where they've done like moving videos of it. Like, okay, well, if this is about what we think it's doing, and it shows sort of the sun is like doing all these different things, and the planets are following it and going around at the same time. It's really interesting. There have been whole symposiums done on this. Again, this is because there's so much at stake by going over to this style of thinking, because then it means acknowledging the ancients and that people were more advanced than they are now. This is described as fringe science, fringe scholarship. You'll find it; it's there, but there's usually fringe, new, cutting edge, minority, right? Or what's another word they often use? Not pseudo, because they have to acknowledge, because all these guys have all the they have all the scrambled eggs and letters after their names that you want, but they tend to describe it using like a fringe, minority. It's like, this is definitely not something that we do. It's quirky. It's kind of weird, eccentric, right? Because those people are always they're eccentrics, right? Not realizing that, as long as there have been mandalas, there have been these issues. All right. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Regarding the issue of Ibn Taymiyyah and
Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah, there's 7 of them, so we have to use their proper name.
Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah, and how we discussed the astronomy and stuff. So, not taking anything away from that, that was quite amazing how he pointed that out about the astrology and
Astronomy.
Astronomy and the different planets and stuff. But I wanted to I know we've spoken about this a few times, but I wanted to just touch on it one last time about the dispute points of the 11 points. I know how there are different sort of positions on it, where there are some that say that based upon believing those 11 disputed points, it would take it out of the fold of Islam. And there are some that say, well, he's Sheikhul Islam. And then there are others, the vast majority, that say, well, we stay silent on it, we just leave those points out and we focus on the good things. And one of the things that we use is hadith, this one here, ijtihad, is that if you do correct ijtihad, you get 2 rewards, and the one that does incorrect ijtihad, he gets 1 reward. I want to understand the limitations of that, because when you're doing ijtihad, you're doing ijtihad on sort of like on the outer sort of levels of Islam. But with his case, he was sort of changing the core sort of values of Islam, which were already sort of manifest, and sort of it was sort of consensus. So how could, on that basis, how could we really implement that hadith? Could you sort of understand what I'm trying to say, and could you discuss sort of that?
All right, the question is regarding Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah and the statement that is used by some that when the mujtahid is correct, he has 2 rewards, and when he is mistaken, the khta'a, when he's mistaken, not wrong, because wrong would be batala, but when he's mistaken, he has 1 reward. That hadith is in Sahih from a Muslim, and how that relates to the 11 issues in theology that Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah had. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. With regards to that, that is not the ahadith. That's not the hadith that the scholars tend to use when discussing Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah. The issue with Taqi ibn Taymiyyah and 11 areas in theology is connected to the fact that the ijtihads that he made were based upon understandings of evidences. And the understanding that he had of those evidences then impacted his actual theology. So, for example, there'll be people who today they'll take texts where the Prophet ﷺ mentions that he's informed. That he's informed of when someone gives salat and salam upon him. There's people who have made their own personal closet ijtihad to say, well, he's right next to me. He's with me physically. So they say, okay, well, when I give salat and salam, he's right here. He is physically present in our gathering, bidatihi, with his essence, right? This now impacts on foundational theology because it's something we've not been told, right? Now, the base theology wasn't touched upon until someone made ijtihad on the evidence and then related it back, and then it caused an impact. Whereas if someone said he is everywhere with his essence, and someone said, wait a minute, hold on, there's no proof for that in the Qur'an. If they said, well, listen, I don't accept the Qur'an, well, that's clear. This person rejected the faith. But they're misunderstanding an ayah based upon interpretation. And ta'wil interpretation is one of the impediments of takfir. Right? It's one of the reasons why someone would not have takfir done upon them, because if they're interpreting, tampering with an evidence, or misunderstanding it wrongly, or they're new to Islam, they didn't understand something, or if they're a scholar that the wide girth of evidences they've then understood an evidence a certain way, and that's then caused them to reach a conclusion that is faulty. Right? This is ta'wil. And ta'wil is something that is a prohibition. It's an impediment of takfir. So there's people that think that if you don't call Taqi ibn Taymiyyah a kafir, then you're a kafir. This is a false ta'wil, right? Now that could be by making that assumption, by saying that, what happens is those people are making that a tenet of iman. They don't realize they're doing it. It's like, yeah, if you don't call Taqi ibn Taymiyyah a kafir, then you're a kafir. It's like, oh, okay, well, is his name in the Qur'an? Well, no. Is it in Sunnah? No. Well, then that would mean that you're outside the faith, because you're adding to the revelation. Is there a consensus that he's kafir? No. Then why are you adding to the revelation? And even on people there's consensus on, what if somebody's new to Islam? Well, they don't know. Right? These are the types of things you have to consider. So that's why people had a very cautious understanding. And the people of his time period that were contemporary to him, both those who made the statements against him and those who refrained, all prayed on him in the end. In fact, until the Ba'athist government took over Syria, his grave was a mazar. It was a major visiting site. Major visiting site. Big old, the tombstone's about as big as this table, standing upright. People, when he died, were making tabarruk with his hair and dipping his hair in water and saying they were getting blessings. And there was a strong odor of misk coming from his grave. That's the thing. Now, he appeared in dreams to different people, and they said, when they spoke to him in the dreams, what's happened to you? He said, Allah has forgiven me. Now, 40 people having different dreams, both detractors and proponents. It's kind of a hard sell if you're a detractor and you have that type of dream. So, with regards to these types of cases, when you're dealing with takfir al-mu'ayyan, because it goes back to the discussion on takfir, the best option is to just revert back to what the scholars have said, because it's the safest option. So, inshallah, we'll close from there. And next week, inshallah, if Allah preserves our health, we have Surah Al-Safat. So I say, Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, innahu ghafurur rahim hamid rahimin, wa la ilaha illa Allah, wassalamu alaykum.